This podcast is not sponsored or supported by any business or organization. The views reflected on these podcast episodes are my own. Please be aware I am not a medical expert, travel agent, or any other kind of expert. Hey everyone, welcome to the Eat, Explore, Love podcast. I'm Ashley. This podcast is based off of my blog of the same name, Eat, Explore, Love. It talks about the unique challenges in traveling around the world when you have celiac disease. Due to sort of popular demand, I decided to also record a podcast to delve a little deeper into my travels and the lessons learned along the way. My guest today is Evan Hock, co-founder of MakeMyMove.com. MakeMyMove is the platform that essentially works as a recruitment agency or matchmaker, if you will, for various cities around the country to attract remote workers. I definitely started this conversation with one assumption of what they did, but I was pleasantly surprised at how MakeMyMove really helps people create that work-life balance we're all trying to achieve. I hope you enjoy this conversation as it gets me one step closer to figuring out my life choices and making my life a little bit better. And I hope it does that for you too. So, hi, Evan. Thank you so much for joining me on Eat, Explore, Love, the podcast. It's so lovely to meet you.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
So, I read up a little bit about you before this conversation today, but in your own words, would you be able to give the listeners and myself, just introduce yourself and give us some background in who you are and what brought us to this conversation today?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Evan. I'm co-founder and chief operating officer for Make My Move. Make My Move is an online marketplace that connects remote workers and other move-ready talent with communities that are trying to attract new residents.
So, can you go a little bit deeper into that? Is this like a post-COVID effort that you guys saw a need and a desire and made it work, or has this COVID just really boosted everything for you guys? How did that evolve
Yeah,
within?
I kind of view it as COVID sort of accelerating our business and trends in the economy that make our business possible. So we started as a tool to help. We're from Indiana, headquartered in Indianapolis. And about 5 years ago, we were starting to see some data that was pretty scary. As some, Hoosiers, that we have kids, we want our kids to stick around as they grow up. But the workforce was shrinking for the first time in the state's history. And so we built the business as a way to kind of reverse that brain drain. And so we built some technology to identify people that might have a connection to the state and some marketing methodology to actually reach them and recruit them back to the state on behalf of local employers. And so for a couple of years, we were working with Indiana employers to attract out of state talent to fill jobs that they needed. And then the pandemic happened and all those employers stopped hiring. But what we realized is that what we built for those employers was actually broadly useful, not just in Indiana, but across the country, where we can build target pools for individual states and municipalities and marketing campaigns to recruit those workers on behalf of those places. And what remote work has really done is just provided an easier mechanism so that we don't actually have to find those people jobs. We just can recruit those workers individually who can bring themselves and their job with them and all the economic impact that comes along.
So, for me, for COVID, I was commuting into New York City. I was born and raised in New York, and then luckily was able to find a job where I was just commuting into Manhattan every day. And I didn't realize how much it was killing me emotionally, physically, mentally, all the things. And I was part of the swarm of people that moved out of these bigger city areas to have more space. But now I'm finding I work in video production, so I have a lot of those companies are now forcing you to go back in person in these LA, New York, DC, bigger city areas. For those companies, what incentives are you able to provide them to say, I think it would be better for you if you let your people continue to work remotely, and here's the data as to why? Or what's the response that you're even getting to that?
Yeah, so I think so much of the incentive for the employers is just built into the talent economy. For the most in-demand talent, there are too few people to fill the jobs, which really puts the talent in the driver's seat. I think certainly we see stories every day of employers calling people back to the office, but almost without fail, we see those employers kind of backtrack as they get pushback from employees. I mean that I don't think you're unique in that. People that have been exposed to remote work, particularly for the first time, love the arrangement. We did a survey over the last couple years, and the results are unambiguous. About 70% of workers under 40 would rather leave their job than have to come back to the office. And for a lot of the reasons that you described. I mean, they like the flexibility. A lot of them have moved to areas that maybe are more affordable, give them more space, that they find a community connection, and they're not willing to give that up. And so, I think a lot of the more forward-looking employers that we talk to view remote work as sort of one piece of a holistic benefits package. That it's compensation, it's insurance, but flexibility on where and when people can work is a big piece of that. And it's in their best interest. For an employer that fully adopts remote work, they don't just have to look for the best talent within a radius of the city. They can find the best talent anywhere. And so I think we're finding that remote work is mutually beneficial, and that's why it's sticking around. I think we're seeing, there was a pendulum shift, back towards some co-located work, but that's really starting to settle into about 15% of the workforce,
Mm.
according to Nick Bloom, who's a remote work expert out of Stanford.
So, do you operate, and sorry if you explained this already and I just am not understanding, do you operate as kind of almost the recruiting middleman for remote jobs, or are you just helping people in their relocation efforts? How are you more for the employee as opposed to the employer? Where are you assisting?
So the marketplace is actually, we're a middleman between the remote worker and the communities where they might end up moving. So we
Okay.
actually don't work with employers on a regular basis. The
Okay.
business model is more a form of economic development. So we work directly and are paid by the cities and municipalities.
Okay.
And the way that works is, historically, for the last, call it 2 or 3 decades, the primary way that a city might grow their economy is to attract a business to relocate. And the basic thesis is, if a business relocates, they're going to, employ people, and they'll pay taxes and sort of spend in the local economy. And they might give that employer, $10 or $15,000 per job that they bring to the place. And there's still a lot of that activity happening. But what's happening now more than ever is those same $10 or $15,000 incentives can be given directly to individual workers, individual remote workers. And so, um, uh, you know, Greensburg, Indiana can recruit an Amazon worker to relocate. And that means that Amazon is paying taxes. It means that worker is now, they're going to buy a home, they're going to pay taxes and
Mhm.
spend in that local economy. And so all of that economic impact is sort of the justification for that $10 or $15,000 incentive given to attract that worker.
So you essentially work for these variety of cities. So Am I understanding that correctly?
That's right. So we help the worker sort of find the place that's right for them, and we play
Okay.
matchmaker. But for the communities, we run the marketing campaigns and build the programs that actually attract those workers.
So, for example, I'll just use myself. I born and raised New Yorker. New York, for obvious reasons, it's whether it's Long Island's about to go underwater or it's so expensive for a single person to try and live in even a studio apartment. Forget about a home. Everything is just too expensive there. I have moved out, but I have not settled anywhere yet. I've lived this nomad life.
Yep.
I am trying to figure out where the best place is to live. I wanted to go into North Carolina, but everybody's having the same idea. So those prices are going up.
Yep.
So if you're using me as the example, how would you work with me in finding the best fit for me?
Yeah, so it's the site is a marketplace. So you go to MakeMyMove.com, and you can kind of shop for different places that are trying to attract workers, like you would a vacuum cleaner. So that they're all listed on the site. There's a lot of great content about what makes those places special. Some of it comes from our editorial staff. Some of it comes from locals that just want to talk about what they love about the place, what they like doing on the weekends, what neighborhoods that they want to live. So you can kind of look for the place that's right for you, and apply for the relocation incentives right there on the platform. So about 70 of the communities that are on the site have these tangible incentives that you can apply for. They range anywhere from five to, I think the top watermark is about $20,000 in cash and other amenities. So you can apply in just a few minutes, find out whether you qualify, and then get connected to those organizations that are running the programs, to get approved and to take advantage of those incentives. So a big piece of that that we do is just help you find the content and the communities that are offering these programs, and then our team, once you start to pick a place, can help make warm introductions to those new communities and help you take advantage of those incentives.
So when I'm connecting with your company, am I connecting with an algorithm of sorts, or or is there staff that we're able to ask questions? Are there people that are on standby to help us with that move, so to speak?
Both, yeah. So some of what we do is algorithm based. So you can tell us your interests, and we'll find you the places that are right. But we also have a staff of people that can answer questions for you, make warm intros to that community, and it's totally free for the worker. It's totally supported by the communities that are running these relocation programs.
Are you noticing a trend in certain areas? I feel like you could almost do some nice things for yourself real estate wise, where you can start investing in places where you're seeing the trend upward. Is that something that you're able to see, or because you're only working with specific communities, you're only able to see the trends in those certain areas?
Yeah, so there's only a handful of communities that pay us, but we are a national platform. So anyone across the country can apply on the platform, and we have about 200 communities on the site. And so yeah, there's a ton of data that we have that we're collecting, both in terms of the interest, and we see broad-based interest. Although the hot spots in terms of consumer demand are places that maybe encounter the same problems that you're describing. So certainly a lot of people on the coast, New York, Boston, on the east. We see a lot of San Francisco, LA. In the West, and then oddly enough, throughout the South, we see a lot of Texas and Florida people applying for programs. Places where they're most interested in, there's a lot of interest in the Midwest and up through the Northeast. But really, it comes down to a very personal decision. People are searching for quality of life, and that means something differently for everybody. But the most common themes that we hear, they're looking for community connections. So maybe they don't feel like they have a good network where they are, and they're looking to contribute and get something out of a new community. They're looking for affordability. Maybe a lot of folks maybe want to buy their first home. Maybe they're about to have a family, and they need more space. But they're also just looking for like basic quality of life. So they want, some place maybe with outdoors or amenities that they're looking for. The good news is across the country, I think there's something for everybody, whether you're looking for a small town or a college town, mountain town, there's all kinds of places that are trying to attract these workers. And, it's our job to just make that process easy.
So, what do you do with the data? Because as you were mentioning certain places, I could also see like politics being a factor as well. We don't need to get too much into the politics. That's not what we're here to talk about. But uh, are you able to take those trends of seeing the motivations of people? Because I'm sure, as you're mentioning, you gave a whole other list of reasons other than just remote working as to why someone would want to move. Um, do you take that data and share it with the cities that people are leaving as well as entering, or do you just, if people want it, they have to ask for it type of thing? Where does that data go? How do you
No,
use that
a
to your
big service that we provide to both our clients and potential clients is that data about and it's wide reaching. Like it's for the communities as the destination, we share a lot about what is attractive about their place to folks, so they can keep investing in those things. We share a lot about what people are concerned about, what reservations that they might have, so that maybe they can fill some gaps. And then we also do exit analysis. So, maybe people that decided not to move, or people that moved and then moved away, within a year, we know the reasons for that. So, I really, I think a lot of the work that these locals are doing is commendable. They love, and are very proud of their homes, and that's why they're running these recruitment programs. They want to grow and invest, and they care deeply about improving. And so, if we can play a small part in helping them figure out where are their gaps, or where there features that they should invest more in, that's a big part of what we do.
I'm absorbing everything that you're saying because I feel like that's something that I in particular need to look into with your service of I feel like no matter where I'm about to go, everybody has the same thought pattern that I do. So it's nice that there's something a little bit more custom made that helps walk you through that process a little bit and even can help give you a little bit of a jump start in like putting a down payment down for a house. That
Sure.
sounds lovely. But because I feel like there's a certain generation, I don't know how old you are, and I won't be rude enough to ask, but at my age range of where people they're telling us that we're never going to be able to buy our first home. We're never going to be able to own a home because we'll always be paycheck to paycheck and cost of living and how everything else is going these days. So your company I feel like gives a little bit of hope for people like me that need it a little bit.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, that's good. That and it's rewarding work. It's certainly, it's so early, kind of in this dynamic, and so it'll be interesting to see how that this competition for talent across municipalities shapes up, and then how that sort of impacts housing markets and job markets across the country. It sounds like I might be a little bit older than you, so they call us elder millennials. Uh, that I guess the silver lining that they said the same thing about my generation, back when we were first thinking about buying houses, and it has worked out. So I'm a little bit more bearish or bullish about the country and the economy. I think we'll be all right.
yeah, for yeah, it always turns back around. You mentioned a lot of the members of the community will help and aid by telling their stories. How do
Yeah.
you connect with those members of the community? Is that the municipalities get volunteers or you give people a stipend to talk about their experience living in the area? How does that all work?
Yeah, a little bit of everything. So in most of these places that we work with, there will be one kind of entity that is sort of really takes the torch and carries it. So that might be the mayor's office, it might be a chamber of commerce or an economic development corporation, it might be a private foundation. But there's some kind of organization that is putting up money and staff to help facilitate. And then in every place, they're going to draw upon kind of a wide network of volunteers, and that could be people that have lived there for a long time and just love the place and want to see it thrive. It could be business owners or employers that both like their community, but also have stand to gain by sort of promoting themselves in that area. And so, a lot of what we do is just kind of play facilitator. We do a lot of the recruitment of volunteers. We deliver a lot of best practices of, hey, do this, not that, to be effective recruiters. A lot of what we do is just coaching. These folks maybe aren't traditionally, marketers. They're not, they don't know what it takes to actually get someone to move across the country. And so we kind of give them tools and tips of how to do that and kind of marshal all the resources to actually land some folks.
So, is there an ideal candidate if someone were to be like a me applying to do this to be able to get those incentives to move wherever it may be? What is that ideal candidate if that exists, or can it be anyone and everyone?
There's a wide spectrum of what communities are looking for, and every community kind of has their own criteria for who qualifies. But generally speaking, they're looking for remote workers who can move within a certain period of time, willing to stay for a certain amount of time, usually between 1 and 2 years, and are
Okay.
able to bring their job with them. Most of our applicants, are fairly high income. Our average mover income is a little over $100,000. Most of them have college degrees of some kind. About half of them have families. Half of them are single. But generally speaking, they tend to be knowledge workers. It might be salespeople or marketers or engineers of different types. But really, communities more than just the sort of skill-based recruitment are looking for folks that want to get involved. Uh, Folks can kind of stand out by sharing volunteerism or what they're wanting to give back to the community once they get there. Just being excited and willing to dig in, meet new people. Those kind of attributes always show well.
So how for the incentives, I guess, because I can hear my grandfather asking this question, so I'm gonna become my grandfather for a moment. Where do the incentives come from? Because you said that it's a wide range of costs or things that could come. Is it coming out of the taxpayers, where they're in a theory, it could be presented to them as you're investing in your community by bringing people here so it can continue to grow, or how does that all work?
Yeah. So for places that are sponsored by like the mayor's office or the Economic Development Corporation, a lot of it will come from public funds. Um, that might be economic development dollars that are sometimes supported by maybe property taxes or supported by funds to bring in new economic development dollars. They generally come from existing tax base, though, so it's
Okay.
pretty rare that I've heard that they're actually creating a separate, tax for this. And you're right. It's the basic premise is, hey, we want to grow our tax base so that we can make more investments down the line and local amenities. These folks are really valuable to their local communities. We did a study with an economist out of Indiana University named Drew Klasik to help us actually quantify the impact of these folks. And what we found is that about for every $100,000 in income that a community recruits, it generates about $83,000 in incremental economic output. And some of that's direct. The person's going to pay taxes of their own. They're going to spend in that economy. And then it's also indirect. So, that spending kind of trickles through the economy. I shop at a grocery store. That grocery store has to, pay workers and who will also pay taxes. So it's actually a pretty good deal that these communities are getting. They might spend $10,000 or $15,000 to recruit that individual, and our projections show that that person's going to generate about $500,000 in economic output over about the 5 to 6 year time frame. So that's on the public side. A lot of these programs are funded with private dollars.
Okay.
So Tulsa, Oklahoma, by far the biggest program in the country. They've recruited just under 3,000 workers with a $10,000 incentive each. And that program is sponsored by kind of local benefactor George Kaiser Family Foundation. So that's kind of a common model. West Virginia has a similar program, sponsored by the founder of Intuit, that just he wants to give back, and that's the way that he's given back.
That's incredible. So if I make the job, I apply, I'm a candidate, great, pick my place of where I want to move. Do you guys also help connect to local real estate agents? How does that moving process, do you have a hand in that? Or once you connect us with whoever that designated person is that's supposed to help, it's out of your hands?
Yeah, so think of us kind of like the grease for the wheels. So we're
Okay.
there if you need anything. A lot of what we do, we'll kind of warm hand you off to the program owners locally, and usually they'll have maybe a network of realtors or have some sort of neighborhoods that they suggest that you live in, or you know uh, rental places that might be a good fit. And again, we're there to sort of facilitate. If they're not finding the right realtor, we'll help you find an alternative. Or can't find the exact right place to live, we'll help you do some local searching. But our team's small. In total we're about 30 people, about five of which in this sort of customer care unit. So a lot of what we're doing is connecting you, and then taking a step back, and
Yeah.
if you have questions, we're there if you need.
Yeah, especially if they're wanting you to move in a certain amount of time. I could see some potential bumps in the road if they're not willing to help. I have taken up a lot of your time. I always end with a series of wrap up questions, a rapid
Sure.
fire. But before I get there, I'm just curious: is there one story that you have in particular that you experienced, and someone that you helped or community that you helped, that really inspires you to keep moving forward with all of this? If you're able to share.
Sure. Yeah. It's maybe kind of hard to pick one. The thing that I'll say that I'm just always inspired by when we're working with these communities is just to kind of start to hear the pride, that wells up as people start to talk about their hometown, or, their place, and how you start to see them rally around, this shared mission of, attracting new residents. And one of the best stories that we ever heard was it was in a little town called Greensburg, Indiana. It's like, I think, about 10,000 people.
Mm.
And when we first started working with them, we say, hey, why do you live here? What's great about Greensburg? And they said, well, we're equidistant between Cincinnati and Indianapolis. Like, okay, well, that's not why you live there. So what's really great? And they just started talking about stories about how, hey, last year I lost my job, and the community really rallied, to both provide some near-term support and help me find the next job. And then everyone starts nodding and telling their own story, and they really kind of crafted this relocation program around that sense of like tight knit sense of
Mhm.
belonging. And so the centerpiece of this program was what they called grandparents on demand. So that the local president of the foundation, Tammy Wenning, and her husband, their kids were grown and had moved on, and they're like, well, we like to babysit, and so that they provided babysitting services to the transplants, and they even stood in for grandparents at Grandparents Day at school, just to kind of, it's one thing to say that you're welcoming, it's another thing to really like show it, and they
Yeah.
did a great job at that.
That's incredible, and in theory, then people pay that forward, and then it just is
Yeah,
a
yeah,
never-ending cycle of,
a
yeah,
great
that's
flywheel. Yeah.
incredible. Well, again, thank you, Evan. Is it okay if we ask you some rapid fire questions in the Eat, Explore, Love
Let's
vein?
let's do it.
Okay, great. Where is your favorite food city that you've ever been to?
Oh gosh. So I just visited Europe for the first time, went to Portugal, and we
Ooh.
spent some time in Lisbon and in Lagos, and both of those just amazing.
I have celiac disease, and Lisbon was amazing for that. They had a whole grocery store just for gluten-free stuff, and I
Yeah.
had eaten things I haven't been able to eat in years. So I agree with you on Lisbon for
Yeah.
sure. Do you prefer a vacation that requires you to relax or be active?
Oh, good. So my family and I are mostly beach bums. So we have busy lives normally. So we like to just find a comfy spot on the beach and read a book.
It's totally, I wish I was able to do that with myself or with my family. No one in my family knows how to sit still, so I'm envious of that.
Yeah.
Is there a city where you learned the most about yourself?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. Well, I would say that I kind of came of age in Indianapolis, so that's probably where most of the self-reflection came from.
That's a perfect answer. And the last question I have for you is, where can people find you and make my move?
MakeMyMove.com is the core site. We're on Twitter at MakeMyMoveUSA. I'm at Evan_Hock on Twitter as well.
Perfect. Amazing. Well, it was lovely meeting you. As soon as I end this, I'm going to makemymove.com and I'm going to see what, where it says I should go. And I'm sure that this will not be the last that you hear from me
All right.
in
Well,
relation to that.
I'll hold you to that. I'll look forward to hearing more from you and listening to the episode. But thanks for the time.
Thank you so much, Evan.
Take care.
Thank you so much for listening. As always, the link to makemymove.com will be in the show notes below. Thank you again for being part of this Eat, Explore, Love community and helping me learn along the way in this great adventure called life. Till next time. Thank you for joining me this week for all the fun journeys and lessons learned on my big adventure called life. For more information on the different cities discussed, check out the blog posts on hieatexplorelove.com, posted every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If you have any questions or fun stories to share, feel free to reach out at hieatexplorelove@gmail.com. Until next week, remember to eat well, explore the world, and love yourself. See you next time. This episode is produced, scripted, and edited by me, Ashley. Special thanks to Sarah Mientka.